From the French Revolution to the American and Russian Revolution, ideologies have shaped the modern world. They continue to shape it through events like the Iranian Revolution in the 1970s, the rise and fall of ISIS in the early 2000s. The question we have to ask ourselves is, how does this social technology work? It is, after all, one of the most basic coordinating mechanisms both of states and non-state actors. Ideology has three basic features when viewed from the perspective of being such a political construct. The features are a worldview or body of theory that explains to the holder of an ideology how the world works. Secondly, there are actions that the members of the ideology are supposed to undertake to achieve the final desired goals of it. Members of these ideologies might police each other or encourage each other toward such actions. Finally, there is the criteria for membership, where you include some and exclude others. Many ideologies claim to be all-inclusive, but in reality, the elite of an ideology is always somewhat exclusive. This can be easily explained on the examples of libertarianism and Marxism. Arguably, Marxist theory is very good at understanding socioeconomic class. They understand the notion that there are such things as class interests and there is such thing as class culture, that people learn certain things because their trade demands it, and that they don't learn certain things because their trade does not demand it. They would also further posit that they have a good model of class oppression and revolution and a good model of economic activity in general, but I think we should, at least for now, be skeptical of those claims. Libertarianism would make a claim that it understands the economy. I think it's fairly obvious libertarians understand supply and demand. They understand markets very well. They perhaps also understand a thing or two about interpersonal ethics. What libertarians likely don't understand, and which is why they cannot claim to understand the economy, is the functioning of class or the functioning of a single company. Companies ultimately are the true engine of economic growth. It's companies, not markets, that create factories. Markets merely enable the rise of some companies rather than others. We don't independently contract on a market when we are employed by an employer. An employer will batch the negotiations at the start, and during the course of our workday, when we are asked to get coffee, there certainly isn't a bidding process in place, nor can we invoke the non-aggression principle to excuse ourselves from bringing coffee. This means most economic life is actually hierarchical, not voluntary. Yes, of course, it was voluntary in the beginning, but then if we make this argument, why don't we go all the way back to social contract theory and argue that all interactions in society are deeply voluntary? They were just agreed on long before we were ever born. I joke, but this should describe some limits to the claims of ideologies, their pretensions to understand more of the world than they actually do. But nearly all powerful ideologies correctly describe at least some small corner of the world and how it works. Supply and demand are actually not intuitive concepts. Libertarians, if they're viscerally libertarian, will in fact over time come to understand the movement of markets notably better than most, and will be more capable of participating in a market-based consumer economy. Marxists, with their understanding of class, might actually understand how to raise themselves up in social class, or might understand how to argue against people who would enforce social class against them. This is the way in which ideologies can be empowering, directly proportional to the practicality of these models. Secondly, the actions libertarians are supposed to undertake and Marxists are supposed to undertake are surprisingly similar. They both are supposed to argue with each other. Libertarians will prefer clear, concise argumentation. Marxists will prefer more wide-sweeping analysis. They will rise or fall in status partially proportionally to their ability to argue through the tenets of the ideology with each other, ironically meaning that often the Marxist theoreticians or the libertarian enthusiasts come from the same sort of demographic. Slavoj Žižek and Jordan Peterson are somewhat similar, aren't they? Finally, the barrier between who is a member and who is not a member of an ideology. Libertarians would propose that universal rights apply to all people. Yet the implicit criteria they set clearly limit it to people who are willing to be disagreeable, people who are willing to argue vigorously back and forth. This is not the default state of social being. The default state of social being is agreeableness. Marxists might propose that the working class should clearly be the vanguard of the revolution. But anyone who is truly working class is not there creating grand sweeping historical theories. On their own, both Marxism and libertarianism are fairly inert. Only when modified by additional social technologies do they become potent. Marxism was altered into Marxism-Leninism by Vladimir Lenin, who added the theory of the vanguard party. Suddenly, as a good Marxist, you were supposed to also follow the directives of this embodiment of the revolutionary spirit, and this embodiment of class interests, which was a professional body of party workers. Ideologies shape our world. We have not entered a post-ideological space. In fact, our default assumptions about how society functions are themselves ideologies. Examining them, we can come to understand which kinds of coordination individuals can undertake and which they cannot. My name is Samo Burja. I'm the founder of Bismarck Analysis. Thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe.